Your wife's been dead for years, darling. Time to modernize.
Those were Karen's exact words when the bulldozers rolled into my pasture at sunrise. No warning, no permission. Just diesel smoke and concrete dust ripping through the grass that had fed my Black Angus herd for nearly 3 decades. 30 prize cattle scattered while Karen stood by her white Tesla, filming me like I was some angry background character in her influencer fantasy. "This is working ranch land," I shouted. She smiled like a woman who'd never been told no. "Progress waits for no one, sweetie." My name's Dutch Kellerman, third-generation rancher. I inherited these 47 acres from my grandfather in 1995, and I've watched the sunrise paint them gold every single morning since. Or at least I did. Until my wife Sarah died 18 months ago, and the morning stopped meaning much of anything. Karen arrived right after the grief settled in. New HOA president. Yoga pants tighter than her soul, Tesla shinier than her morals. She didn't like cows making noise at dawn, didn't like the smell of hay, didn't like that my ranch existed at all. So she found an old document in county records and decided it magically turned my pasture into her future bike path. Surveyors showed up spray painting X's on my oak trees like they were tagging a crime scene. Lawyers sent letters. Neighbors whispered, and Karen smiled wider every day. What she didn't realize was that my pasture had a king. Taurus. 2,200-pound muscle and zero tolerance for trespassers. And fate, as it turns out, has a strange way of choosing sides. What she didn't realize was that my pasture had a king. Karen thought paperwork could bully a bull. The letters kept coming, thick envelopes with threatening words and signatures that somehow never quite looked real. She paraded her fake authority around the neighborhood, telling anyone who'd listen that my ranch was outdated infrastructure, standing in the way of a brighter bike path-shaped future. Meanwhile, my house got quieter without Sarah. Too quiet. Some mornings I'd still set out 2 mugs before remembering only one of us was left to drink coffee at the table. Then the environmental crisis started. Karen plastered the community mailbox with flyers screaming about contaminated creek water. She even brought in a so-called specialist who wore a lab coat so stiff it still had fold lines from Amazon shipping. They filmed everything, made it look like my cows were poisoning the neighborhood children. The real tests told a different story. The creek was clean, cleaner than the HOA's chemically soaked lawns, actually. But the truth never trends as fast as drama. What did trend was the local paper's headline a week later: HOA president's water expert is her brother-in-law. That's when neighbors began to realize something wasn't just off, it was criminal. Then came the sabotage. My cattle troughs reeked of oil. My truck tires were slashed while I stood at Sarah's grave. Security guards, fake ones, started patrolling my fence like I was a terrorist instead of a widower trying to protect his land. And through it all, Karen kept smiling, until my lawyer walked into my kitchen one afternoon, spread a stack of bank records on the table, and said the words that changed everything. "This bike path isn't about bikes. It's about stealing your ranch." Because hidden behind Karen's yoga poses and Pinterest-perfect HOA emails was a $500,000 money trail leading straight into her personal accounts. And suddenly, the quiet mornings didn't feel so lonely anymore. This bike path was never about bikes. It was about stealing my life. That's what I whispered when I saw the numbers. Karen and her husband hadn't just been bullying me. They'd been bleeding the HOA dry, funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars through fake vendors and emergency community projects. My ranch wasn't an inconvenience. It was the final piece in their escape plan. Take my land, sell it, disappear. Federal agents got involved faster than you can say community transparency initiative. They wanted to catch her in public, where lies collapse the loudest. And Karen, bless her delusional heart, scheduled the HOA meeting herself. The community center filled like a courtroom on reality TV finale night. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months were suddenly best friends, whispering bets about how bad this was going to get. Karen strutted in late, holding a latte like a trophy, acting like she'd already won. She clicked her presentation remote. "Tonight," she purred, "we celebrate the resolution of the ranch obstruction and the beginning of our modern future." That's when my lawyer stood up. That's when the screen changed from bike paths to forged signatures and bank transfers. That's when the FBI badge flashed. Karen's face went from smug to ghosted in under 2 seconds. She tried to bolt. She mashed her car remote like it was going to summon Jesus. Outside, her Tesla started screaming, and the parking lot went very, very quiet because from the pasture beyond the fence, something big lifted its head, something that had ruled that land long before Karen discovered the word easement. And somewhere between the sirens and the shouting, destiny cleared its throat. If this story has you grinning, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Some lessons don't come from courtrooms, they come from hooves. Karen never made it to the driver's seat. The federal agents had already closed in when fate decided she hadn't learned enough yet. Her car alarm shrieked across the parking lot like it was calling for divine intervention. Instead, it got Taurus. 2,000 pounds of pasture royalty burst into the scene like he'd been personally invited by the universe. He didn't look angry. He looked offended. One headbutt, then another. Her pristine white Tesla went from luxury vehicle to abstract art exhibit in under a minute. Doors folded, windows shattered, the hood buckled like it owed him money. The entire HOA poured outside. Some people screamed, some people filmed. One old man yelled, "That bull's got better judgment than our board ever did." Karen collapsed onto the curb, wailing about insurance policies and persecution while federal agents slipped the cuffs on her wrists. Her husband tried to fade into the crowd like a beige cardigan, but karma has facial recognition. As they were led away, Taurus stood proudly beside the wreckage, chewing grass like he'd just finished a light warm-up. 6 months later, Karen was in federal prison. The HOA elected a new board. The bike path got rerouted around my land, and the oak grove where Sarah's ashes rest now has a bench with her name carved into it. Every morning, I watch the sun rise over my pasture again. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and somewhere in the field, Taurus is still king. If this story made you laugh, wince, or quietly cheer for a bull, smash like, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and subscribe